Kate Miller-Falcher. Welcome to Irish Granny Tarot. This is video number 4 of our book, In Plain Sight. Let's move ahead. Videos 1 to 3 will be uploaded by the time you see this, so be sure to catch the beginning of the book. Chapter 12, The Hunt for the Big Secret. In 2008, a Nevada Democrat, Senator Harry Reid, got a letter from the Department of Intelligence Agency scientist, anonymous guy, who said that there was a new multi-million-dollar secret investigation going on into UFOs. Reid seemed to be holding secret information, and he was pushing really hard for an like he knew something, and he was pushing hard. Reid was one of the Gang of 8, so, I don't know, Lauren Boebert. I'm joking. One of the Gang of 8 members of Congress who are investigating. And he was briefed on highly classified, waived, unacknowledged, special access programs. He had a long interest in UFOs and in Area 51. Bigelow had passed this letter to Reid. Reid visited Skinwalker Ranch, and this is what convinced him to push for an ongoing, intensive, serious investigation. This anonymous scientist told Bigelow that he'd seen a 3D object like a triangled bent bell. I'm just trying how to describe it. It's like a pipe, so that you could see the inside of the pipe, bent into a triangle, but the legs of the pipe extended like that. Very strange shaped thing. And, nothing in the middle, just the pipe thing. And it had materialized out of nowhere. Look up tubular bells. Google tubular bells and you'll see the drawing, and that's what it looked like. Scientists were rattled. This scientist was rattled. Ross says that Reid probably knew a lot of classified intelligence, and the letter gave him a concrete excuse, and he was able to push and got $22 million in funding. With Senator Inouye, who was very suspicious of a shadow government, as he called it, and with Ted Stevens. Now, Ted Stevens died in a plane crash 2 years later, and he claims to have seen UFOs in World War II. So much of this money went to Bigelow, the billionaire, and Bigelow was 100% a believer, and he said all of this stuff is right under people's noses if they would just, there are none so blind, right? So what did he discover? He avoids the media. He did hire the Nimitz jet pilot who saw the Tic Tac. So Bigelow, it turns out, was the only one bidding for access to the federal budget money from Reid, and got it for the AATIP, which I can't remember what that means. There's so many alphabet agencies here. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That was being funded by this budget also. Reid intentionally avoided UFO language. He felt like it triggered too much for people. The threat is that UFOs are tracking and observing U.S. military and nuclear facilities. It seems pretty self-evident that that would be a problem. Robert Hastings wrote UFOs and Nukes in 1973, and he interviewed more than 150 military witnesses of UFOs over most military nuclear facilities and in England. And the question was, why? What's going on here? Were they UFOs trying to ameliorate the effects of our radioactivity? So he said maybe because they're afraid we'll use nukes, and they don't want to have to deal with the planet when it's a nuclear wasteland. Other witnesses confirmed that Roswell was real, and that there are crafts and bodies March 25th, 1948, in Aztec, New Mexico, a giant 100-foot diameter flying saucer was seen on a mesa. I guess it stalled out, ran out of gas, and it was retrieved secretly by the military. Ross spoke to Ross, our author, to a number of witnesses of this. In 1950, FBI, U.S. Air Force, they got together and did a smear campaign to silence the witnesses. And why, if it's all fiction? Why are they putting so much effort into shutting people up? If the people are misled and telling a lie, who cares? Let them tell it, right? Well, I don't know. We've kind of seen how that can work out. So Bigelow, Dr. Davis, Eric Davis, the scientist hired by Bigelow, they confirm that, yeah, somebody's got them. They just don't understand the physics of them yet. He was a top secret government scientist, and he remains a valuable employee with top clearance. And he's saying these things. So what's the deal with that? That seems like that wouldn't happen. Like they wouldn't trust him, or they wouldn't want him around if he was a lunatic spewing fairy tales. In 2004, National Institute of Discovery Science investigator Dr. Colm Kelleher was flatly asked by Coast to Coast Art Bell whether he thought the U.S. military had contact with aliens, and he replied, "We've had information over the last several years that seems to indicate that certainly pieces of technology have been recovered." And Ross says, where is this coming from? June of 2009, Senator Reid asked for the AATIP, that's the secret group, to become an SAP, one of those secret programs that have to be accessed with special clearance. Special access program. And his letter that he wrote asking for it said why such strict classification was now necessary. Reid said they've made substantial progress with identifying highly sensitive, unconventional aerospace-related findings. Given the current rate of success, the continued study of this subject will likely lead to technology advancements in the immediate near term and will require extraordinary protection. Due to the sensitivities of the information surrounding aspects of this program, I require your assistance in establishing a restricted special access program. Blah, blah, blah. The obvious question is, did this have to do with, excuse me, it's okay, allergies, with the Bigelow team's claims of recovered ET technology? So this letter got leaked. Reid's letter got leaked. Coast to Coast got their hands on it. And its associated exotic technologies likely involve extremely sophisticated concepts within the world of quantum mechanics, nuclear science, electromagnetic theory, gravitics, and thermodynamics. Given that all of these have the potential to be used with catastrophic effects by adversaries, an unusually high degree of operational security and read-on discretion is required, the senator wrote. The technological insight and capability gained will provide the U.S. with a distinct advantage of any foreign threats and allow the U.S. to maintain its preeminence as a world leader. It was rejected. His request was rejected. Bigelow's team ended in 2010, and the project didn't end. The team broke up. The project was passed on to, quote, a better suited agency. Okay. Ross suspects that Bigelow found secret code names for secret government UFO programs. We know somebody did. Reid told the New Yorker magazine, quote, I was told for decades that Lockheed had some of these retrieved materials, and I tried to get it. I needed a classified approval by the Pentagon to go look at the stuff. They would not approve it. So, stymied at all sides. I wanted to look at it, but they wouldn't give me a clearance. Christopher Mellon, remember him, had multiple inside sources, and he publicly says, yes, The government has alien craft, no doubt about it. If a senior senator with oversight is not given access, who has access? The inmates are running the asylum, as it were. So now we have chapter 13. Would the president know? In 2011, the White House, in a definitive statement, first time since 1947 that the executive branch of the U.S. government has issued a formal position in writing on issues of ETs and UFOs, wrote, the U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public's eye. If this is true, White House denial is true, then Dr. Eric Davis is a liar, and so are several of his colleagues, and they have top security clearance and work on secret government programs while they lie. I mean, that's the logical conclusion. In 2011, the Los Angeles Times, with historical mainstream historian and journalist Annie Jacobson, wrote about the history of Area 51 and how it gives credence to the Roswell crash, a retrieval cover-up. In the article, she said July 1947, the U.S. Signal Corps tracked 2 craft in the southwest of U.S. skies, 1 crashed near Roswell. The Office of Joint Chiefs took command, recovered the technology, propulsion equipment, power sources. It had no wing, no tails, a round fuselage with a dome. There are secret documents, declassified in 1994, that call it a flying disc. Her claim was that a Russian craft had been made by captured Nazi scientists. The bodies on board, this is sad, I have trouble with this. The bodies on board were grotesquely deformed children with large heads and weird eyes. Seriously? She claimed that Mengele, Dr. Mengele, and Stalin made a deal that he would go to Russia and that he could continue his eugenics experiments, hence the children on this thing. And Stalin's plan was to land this craft in New Mexico and create a war of the world's panic in the United States. The bodies found were comatose but still alive, and Ross asks, was she intentionally fed absurd disinformation to put her off the scent of the real event facts? I mean, the whole thing is, everything is, how can you know what to believe? So this story guarantees that Roswell was subject to ridicule or got ignored by the mainstream. And this has been typical, the typical government response: deny, ignore, or lie with a crazy story. This is how the government responds. Jimmy Kimmel asked Obama, if I was the president the moment I was inaugurated, my hand would still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they hold the files about Area 51 and UFOs, and I would go through everything to find out what was happening. Did you do that? Obama smiled, said, that's why you will not be president. That's the first thing you would do, laughing. The aliens won't let it happen. You'll reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us. Jimmy said, well, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here. Obama laughs. Every twitch, everything, and say, so, did you look? Did you see? Did you explore? Obama, slightly more serious, says, I can't reveal anything. Jimmy says, oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in and he did check and there was nothing. And Obama says, well, that's what we're instructed to say. And he laughs, and obviously this is all a big joke, right? That's the way they address it. So Obama didn't annoy. Well, maybe he did. No, he didn't deny. He avoided. So now we have a real interesting character. I had never heard of this guy. This is very interesting. There's a group, a musical group called Blink 182. I was going to look up their music and I forgot. I've never heard them. And one of the guys, prominent member, was Tom DeLonge. In 2015, he quit the group to go on a UFO hunt because while he was camping in Area 51 with friends, trying for a close encounter of the fifth time, of the fifth kind, and I guess he believed in UFOs and he wanted to make contact in the desert. His friends and he had done all the protocols, meditating, projecting intent. He told his friends at 3 a.m. that something weird happened. Now, early Christians believed that 3 a.m. was the devil's time because Jesus died at 3 p.m. and the exact opposite was 3 a.m. and 3 a.m. was the devil's time as a mocking inversion to the time of the death of Christ. Just tying themselves up in metaphysical knots. Okay. I have to read this to you because it's just too much. So at 3 a.m., the world-famous not that famous. The world-famous rock musician, author, and filmmaker woke up hearing dozens of strange voices outside his tent. Remember I told you? Skinwalker Ranch, weird voices speaking foreign languages? Okay. He says he was completely paralyzed. Quote, "My whole body felt like it had static electricity. And I opened my eyes and the campfire's still going and there's a conversation going on outside the tent. It sounded like there were about 20 people there talking and instantly my mind goes, okay, they're at our campsite. They're not here to hurt us. They're talking about something, but I can't make out what they're saying, but they're working on something. And then I close my eyes and wake up and the fire is out and I have about 3 hours of lost time. Next morning, he roused his friends and asked if they heard anything. One slept through it, however. The other said, yeah, they were all around our tent. They were talking. This freaked DeLong out a lot because in his mind, it confirmed his experience was not simply sleep paralysis and a lucid dream. So he went home and he started reading and he read John Mack, which describes that often this weird foreign chatter is heard outside UFOs. DeLong's music history is full of alien songs and references to UFOs, and it's dismissed by many because of its association with punk rock and being crazy. However, the incredible bonkers crazy thing about Tom DeLong's obsession with UFOs is that I am now certain that the author, that very senior government officials claiming to be protecting one of the United States' most closely held secrets briefed DeLong, rock star, on what they assured him was the truth about a genuine UAP cover-up. It's an extraordinary story how all this came to light. If what these senior officials told DeLong is actually true, then a monstrous lie has been perpetrated. What we can be very sure of is that DeLong secured astounding access, far more than anyone else studying the phenomenon, speaking secretly with very senior U.S. generals, spies, and aerospace executives, whom he claims briefed him on an American 7-decade history of contact with alien intelligences. Maybe they figured, who was ever going to believe a crazy rock star? So now we're going to go down the rabbit hole here. It is really very interesting. He quit his band because his UFO interest was so strong that he was secretly meeting with possible whistleblowers preparing to talk with Congress. Was this Greer is the question. He claimed his phone was tapped. He laid out this conspiracy that UFOs have been around forever. They're the basis for earthly religions. The governments took technology from them in secret, and they have an agenda having to do with this technology. Keep it away from your enemies, use it to your own advantage. The media went after him, and as Ross, Australian, said, they took the piss. But, made fun of him. But in background, he was making incredible contacts. Now, here's the thing. This stuff happened. It's proved. It happened. He met who he says he met. And spent the time he says he spent. The people were present who he says were present. Ross has talked to most of them. The only thing in question is, it's a he said, she said. They all say one topic was discussed. The people they met with The main person they met with denies it. And this begs the question, are they lying? Were the government people lying? Or were they telling the truth? If they were lying, were they lying in order to manipulate this rock star to get fake stories out there? Or were they lying to manipulate the rock star to let him do the disclosure and get them off the hook because they're breaking laws? Or were they telling the truth because they want him to reveal the truth and get them off the hook because they're breaking the law? I know, it's complicated. Let's continue. So he was invited to be a celebrity, to introduce a defense aerospace tech guy at a big party, private party. And he agreed, but he said, I'll make a deal with you. I'll do it for free if that tech guy gives me 5 private minutes, the aerospace guy. So the top executive for Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, the secret program, met with him. And later, after this conversation at the party, multiple members met with him of Skunk Works. The meeting that they had, the multiple members with Tom DeLonge, was held in secret at an Area 51 bunker. They talked with him they talked with him about super secret, black budget ops having to do with aliens. They were going to give him documents that fell through, but he met a lot of people in the secret programs and extended his relationships with them, met more often, learned more things. This bunker was a secure concrete bunker inside Area 51. DeLonge says he went through 4 layers of security, guns, electronic code entry systems, hallways with speakers playing white noise, and a series of solid doors flanking my view, each with rotary locks and not a single window in sight. When Skunkworks executives realized that he had lied to get into the meeting, how did he lie? He convinced them that he wanted to single-handedly change the attitudes of youth who were jaundiced about corporate stuff, didn't trust corporations, the military-industrial complex. So he offered, they'll listen to me, we can do it through rock festivals and music and art, and we'll get the young, and I can be the voice for the military-industrial complex to the youth. So what he really wanted to do was to know about UFOs and secret programs, and they quickly denied any involvement, any evidence, any interest, but he didn't give up. In 2016, he told George Knapp that he proposed to the executives that he act as a liaison to the youth because they have a jaded view of the government lies. He needed them as advisors. So DeLonge later wrote nonfiction book. That's why he needed them. He was writing a nonfiction book with Peter Levenda about abductees, physical evidence, and the post-traumatic stress abductees suffer, as with Dr. John Mack. And he says that his meeting with these executives gave him further access with military brass, U.S. Air Force intelligence officers, NASA, and White House bureaucrats. So he inched his way in there. He claims a pivotal secret meeting with a general who told him that it was the Cold War and we found a life form. Chapter 14, we can handle the truth. DeLonge told Joe Rogan that he had a green light from the government and the defense intelligence people to say whatever, preparing for government disclosure. He was told not to reveal too much, and he was rehearsed by the military. So is this a big scam by the military to get this guy to do their bidding? Ross says if you will think he sounds crazy, says you will think he sounds crazy, but there's a strong evidence that he met with all these people. There's evidence, and a lot of these people who he claims were involved in these meetings say they were involved in the meetings. The debate is, did they get told from the military intelligence people, did they get told what he claims they got told about UFOs, etc., etc.? He claims that they admitted there was a government retrieval of craft and ET bodies and a secret struggle to master the technology and protect humanity from threat. So there's no doubt that these meetings happened. The only question is what was really said. Maybe the officials thought that what DeLong said was so crazy that no one would believe it, that they could tell him whatever he wanted to hear, get rid of him. Just big questions there. He says that there were people at these meetings in uniforms and spooks in suits, that there was a lot of male bravado. You can't handle the truth is basically what he and Edgar Mitchell and those guys were told. So these things don't happen on the Hill, he was told, meaning Washington, nor at the White House. They happen at tables like this where a few men get together and decide to push the ball down the field, whatever that means. So there's an egregious disregard for democratic accountability and government oversight going on here. DeLong seems to have fallen for the government excuses that this was all done from benevolence. Ross believes these people, military brass and the spooks, are zealots that are desperate to conceal crimes against the Republic. The president's been lied to, denied truth. Congress has been denied. The people have been lied to. And DeLong thinks that we should trust these military secret program people. Ross is not so sure. George Knapp told him that they're not going to tell you anything that they can't deny or discredit. That's pretty realistic. DeLong says, you're talking about levels of power that we can't comprehend as civilians. Well, that's pretty bad. Ross argues that all these government entities only have the power that they claim they have because they're given the power by the people. That's how the government works. And they get their power through the executive branch and the legislative branches voted for by the people. History teaches us that unaccountable military and intelligence making reckless decisions in secret are not a good thing. Example, COINTELPRO. Ross says that probably 90% of us reading this would call BS on DeLong. So he pitched a massive entertainment concept of novels and films and documentaries and nonfiction books to raise public awareness. That was his pitch. What if any of this is remotely true? Ross asks. Bad investigative journalists just to dismiss it because it sounds crazy. He says he was told, DeLong says he was told that they kept secret all of this because it might scare the people and because aliens are a threat. Ross asks, if so, do they have a plan to consult with the global population before waging war against the first non-human intelligence that we've met? Just asking. We should be skeptical about a military that says it's needing $6 billion or trillions of dollars to combat secret threats that it can't tell us about for our own good. DeLong says that he was told that we're already in touch with ETs, they time travel, that we figured out some of the tech. True or not, DeLong believes what he claims he was told. He believes what they said. Is it true? We don't know yet. He claims that those in the know are agonizing over how to tell them, I bet they're losing sleep. DeLong told them to take the middle of the road on disclosure, hold back a bit. And Ross is like, WTF? Are you serious? Why is he giving them permission to lie? He says, we can handle it. Just, we handled the election in 2016. We can handle anything. DeLong was told that ETs have been here for millennia, that the government has UFOs and ETs, and So did they feed him BS, is what Ross asks, to discredit him? Did they think that he'd keep it secret? No, surely they're not that naive. Or do they want him to leak the truth to soften us up? The National Reconnaissance Office sees these UFOs from satellites all the time, and they showed DeLong evidence of that. He claims he met with Brass at Colorado Springs and was greenlit for access and media awareness, for a soft disclosure, little tidbits, to get us used to the idea. And the military is taking control over DeLong's agenda, basically. After his coast-to-coast interview, he was interrogated by a different government agency. Who are you? You know stuff you shouldn't know. So the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. When we say government, we're not talking about the whole government. We're not talking about Congress and the president. We're talking about pockets of knowledge and much larger pockets of ignorance, not knowing. They don't agree on telling the public, these different agencies. On the show in 2016, he promised science breakthroughs that would be like magic. He claimed that once people knew the secret, that money was being used to prepare to fight aliens, that we'd be grateful. Right. So his story is, just to review, since the 40s, the government has had a UFO research program. It's developing its own craft within a private corporation, and there's the real issue. It's developing anti-gravity, but he had been told earlier that they had not figured out anti-gravity, so which is it? A life form was found in 1989, and it changed the course of history, he was told. It was kept secret because the government didn't understand it yet. So they're giving themselves plausible deniability, so leave them alone to spend billions of dollars in secret without oversight, basically is what they're saying. DeLong claimed the government investigated abductions and cattle mutilations, that aliens were pitting governments against each other based on religion to create a multiple front war. Now, that's not too difficult to believe. Multiple gods fighting and using the human population to fight religious wars so that they can pursue an agenda unremarked. Okay? They're instigating global unrest. They are what was called the demons of past myth and the gods of past myth. Ancient civilizations, the Maya, the Inca, the Easter Islanders, disappeared because they didn't want to go along with the agenda. Now, that's not what other people say. Nostradamus, Dolores Cannon, they say that they elevated, went to a different vibratory level, to another dimension. So governments are trying to be ready this time, and actually governments are secretly uniting. Human government is uniting to get this technology. The United States, Russia, China, the Nazi Germany, Nazis worked on it during that time period. It's an international secret collaboration to prepare for the others. Humanity has been kept in the dark by zealot generals who don't want us to know the gods of humanity may have malevolent rivals. We're getting ready for a war with ET, according to them. It's the TBSMT, Tom's Benevolent Spooks and Military Theory. The knowledge of alien life being kept secret by governments so that we don't get scared. His theory. This is Ross making fun of him. Trust in the government when this began was about 75%, and in 2007 it's about 30%. I can't even think about what it is now. Ross says, call me cynical, but big if this is true, it's about their fear of being hauled up in front of Congress. They're lying, deceitful crooks who corrupted their oaths. And it's all unbelievable until the work of some Russian hackers. Uh-oh. So chapter 15, sharing the guilty secret. Victor Netiksho, a Russian military intelligence agent from the GRU, which is the military intelligence in Russia. He was pitted, unbeknownst to Podesta, against Podesta. He committed crimes that actually ended up corroborating Tom DeLonge's story, that he'd met senior government Department of Defense officials, spies, military contractors with secret government conspiracies to keep secret from the rest of us. Podesta had become Hillary Clinton's campaign manager in 2016, and Netisko, I'm just going to call him the GRU because he's a spy for the military intelligence. The GRU led a team of military hackers called Fancy Bear. Politically motivated computer hacking, which is in violation of international law. They hacked into the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. They hacked into the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And they were looking for dirt on Hillary Clinton. Podesta was busy. It was close to the end of campaign. Trump had just made his public Russia, are you listening? If you're listening speech. The American intelligence knew that this had already happened. They were fully aware of what was going on behind the scenes. The Russians had hacked into the Democratic organizations. Within hours of this comment by Trump, the Russian hackers increased their efforts. And Russ says this guy, this GRU guy, is Dr. Evil. They saw the benefit for Russia in hacking Hillary, and they found Podesta's email password. Why did he call him Dr. Evil? Because he was the one who painted the Novichok poison on the doorknobs in Salisbury, England. He was the one who shot a Georgian who was living not from Atlanta, from former Russian state, living in Berlin, and he was the one responsible for 298 dead on MH17. So this is the GRU unit 29155. Its only goal is to destabilize Europe. And Natishka's cyber hackers want to cyber subvert one of the oldest democracies. They hacked into Podesta's email. They leaked the WikiLeaks. They gave them to WikiLeaks. They revealed the plans for a meeting between DeLonge. I mean, they unveiled all kinds of stuff, but in that content, plans between DeLonge and two Air Force generals and the general manager, vice president of Lockheed Martin, Rob Weiss, Skunk Works, Lockheed Martin. And so when Tom DeLonge talks about the boss man, he's probably talking about Rob Weiss. DeLonge had one-on-one with him, and he told Podesta in emails about all this stuff. He wanted to get together with him because he had two very important top officials he wanted Podesta to talk to. So, big question mark. U.S. Air Force Major General Michael Carey. Let's talk about this guy for a sec. The endorsement, DeLonge wrote a book, and it was a thriller, and it revealed his connections to Major General Michael Carey, Special Assistant to the Commander of the Air Force Space Command at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado, the base for the super secure NORAD Cheyenne Mountain facility. This should scare everybody to hear this. This is where the entire airspace of Canada and the U.S. is monitored for anomalous aircraft or space objects. If any non-terrestrial object is entering Earth's atmosphere, NORAD should know all about it. Carey, in charge of this program, endorsed DeLonge's 2016 thriller saying that our adversaries are aware of our undertakings with classified technology, and they're doing the same, but the citizens aren't. And our military leaders have been saying space is a contested environment for years now, and perhaps we should believe them. The general's blurb, now he endorsed all this, was a curiously positive endorsement for a book that includes fictional U.S. military characters hiding the truth about a secret government alien flying saucer program that, without giving away too much of DeLong's storyline, has been subverted by traitors from within. Of course, the book is only fiction. So another Podesta email was from Neil McSee, and that listed attendees: DeLong, Podesta, Weiss, Hillary Clinton's assistant, and Major General Kerry. McSee turned out to be Susan McCasland Wilkerson. Let's talk about her. She's an astrophysicist and former astronaut candidate with NASA who happens to be married to former Major General William Neil McCasland, the commander of the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. In the conspiracy-stricken world of ufology, few locations arouse more breathless speculation than the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Lab, which used to be known as the Foreign Technology Division. Numerous purported whistleblowers and insiders have claimed for years that this secure installation is a veritable underground car park of recovered alien craft and technology, a claim adamantly denied by the U.S. military. Today, the Foreign Technology Division has been rolled into the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. Major General Neil McCasland was one very interesting guy to invite to the White House for a quiet chat about UFOs. Mythology would suggest he knows a lot. So after this meeting, DeLong wrote this email, and he was frustrated that Neil McCasland claimed to be a skeptic at the meeting, but DeLong knew that he wasn't a skeptic because he'd had other conversations with him, and because he had another 4-hour meeting beforehand, and McCasland admitted a bunch of stuff. This email from Podesta suggests that McCasland told things to DeLong, but then played coy when talking to Podesta. Emails confirm that this rock star was meeting with officials about UFOs. There's absolutely no denying that. The only question is what was said in the meetings. What could they possibly meet about except UFOs? They weren't discussing their taste in music, I'm quite sure. So DeLong also said the U.S. Air Force Space Command advisor told him multiple crash retrievals happened in the 40s. Why just the 40s? It's just kind of a random question. But the only proof is that the meetings really did happen. There's no evidence of what was said. So why did they agree to meet with him if he's lying? And they all have not disputed his claims. They've all been silent. He's made all these wild claims about what was talked about. Crickets. No media coverage. Podesta's email from DeLong claims that he and the general talk every other day. And Ross in capital letters goes, about what? What? So one email from the general hints that a soft disclosure is happening, that they had planned it during, like when Hillary Clinton was supposed to be president, she was going to do a disclosure. And it would include the Department of Defense, the Department of Intelligence Agency, and NOAA. So, just a couple of old Cold War warriors spinning yarns. This is Michael Carey, the general, retired, and Neil McCasland, the retired guy. Just a couple of old war warriors spinning yarns with a charismatic rock star who flattered them with his attention. Perhaps these former generals are actually hardcore punk rockers. Well, the problem with this interpretation is that DeLong explained to Podesta in one email that he was also in touch with other current serving senior officers in the U.S. Air Force Space Command. He said he planned to have dinner in September 2015 with current commanding officers at the Air Force Space Command in a couple of days in Colorado Springs to discuss how to move this project forward. DeLong clearly never intended this admission to be public. He was sending Podesta these emails in confidence. So whatever this planned disclosure was about, DeLong's candid private admission showed his project enjoyed the involvement of very senior officers in the U.S. Air Force Space Command. This is important, seeing this independent corroboration gives Tom DeLong's claims just that little bit more credibility in my mind. He says maybe this isn't as so crazy after all. But then, what happened? Podesta up front said that the government knows more, and he wanted to reveal it if Clinton was president. Hillary also said that she'd invest in Area 51 and UFO investigations and visits. I'm going to read a little bit long here, but there was no way to summarize it easily. Here then is a completely fictional hypothetical scenario. Imagine you're a government insider for years has been criminally concealing evidence of advanced propulsion and free energy systems that the U.S. has derived from recovered non-terrestrial alien craft. All this paid for in secret by U.S. taxpayers without their knowledge. It's a monstrous secret, a highly classified, waived, and unacknowledged special access program shared only among a handful of corporate, defense, intelligence, and political insiders, if at all. Since 47, you and your predecessors have lied repeatedly to the public in press statements and sworn evidence to Congress and even to presidents and their advisors about what you really knew. You have colluded with private contractors to hide this from congressional oversight. Billions of dollars diverted from taxpayer-funded budgets to pay for insanely expensive research and technology programs, including hugely dangerous new space weapons, have been kept secret from all but a handful in the know. You and your fellow gatekeepers to the big secret have been reassuring yourself for years that what you're doing is definitely in the best interests of the people. The excuse you use to convince each other that it all needs to be kept secret is that it is best the public does not know because they might get scared of the aliens you're planning to fight in a brand new war that you're very excited about. You have even been able to announce a crude, offensive military space force without anyone asking why it's needed. The Space Force, the sixth and newest branch of the U.S. military, was created December 2019. Its Latin motto is unabashedly militaristic. Sic vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Space Force's stated vision includes a world-class team of space professionals developing combat-ready space forces and space warfighting capabilities. Continuing this hypothetical and completely fictional scenario, you have convinced yourself that admitting this incredible secret to suspicious senators or government oversight watchdogs, or God forbid the general public, is far too dangerous for national security. Keep it under wraps. Keep on spending the billions. Keep them all in the dark. What they do not know does not hurt them. If they try to break into Area 51, rough them up a bit and give them a scare, but reassure them it's all about national security and protecting new aerospace technology, even if we have not seen anything new come out of Groom Lake for 30 years. After all, it's all about protecting the Republic. Imagine then that this demented evasion and disinformation strategy has been going along fine for 7 decades until Hillary Clinton and her campaign manager, John Podesta, start making noises on the campaign trail about how they would demand the truth if they got in power. Initially, you convince yourself that it's the kind of trendy thing politicians say just to woo the millennial vote, that they weren't really serious. Then, 2015-16, the media becomes increasingly sure in its reporting that Clinton is cert for the presidency, that Donald Trump doesn't have a chance. As a gatekeeper, you are now getting very nervous that come February 2017, post-inauguration, it might be you who's hauled in chains before a congressional inquiry to explain why you hid the big secret. You start panicking that Clinton, and especially Podesta, might not understand your protestations, that it was all about protecting the Republic. Your sleep is interrupted by images of CIA interrogators under Podesta's gleeful direction, slowly pulling out your toenails at Guantanamo to get the whole sorry story. Then imagine along comes Tom DeLong. He must seem like a gift. With a wink and a nod, he lets you know that he knows what you know. It's a huge relief to be able to share your guilty 70 plus years secret with DeLong. And he's offering you a way to let the public know that makes the entire military industrial complex cover up sound like a bed of roses. And you will get to control the disclosure narrative. Hell yeah. This is our sort of guy, you think. Trump wins and they relax and there's champagne all around. DeLong is upset, disappointed, and nobody's taking his calls now. So he has friends in the secret world who want to go to the stars, right? So now we're on chapter 16. I think I'll do another chapter. Chapter 16, To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences. In 2017, he announced a new UFO research and disclosure group. An interesting group. Jim Semovin, one of the two co-founders with DeLong, was only recently retired from the Central Intelligence Agency's Directorate of Operations after 25 years as an operations officer working inside the U.S. and internationally. The third co-founder, Dr. Hal Puthoff, I love it, a theoretical physicist who had led the previous controversial CIA and Defense Department research into psychic spies or remote viewing. Another team member included from DeLong's group, Steve Justice, who just a month earlier had finished as Director of Advanced Systems at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. The symbolism of this group of well-informed former insiders, all with top-secret compartmentalized security clearances, quitting the black world and joining a group to campaign for UFO research and plea for government transparency was profound. They wanted to be a vehicle for change and solve the UFO mystery. Christopher Mellon was there too, and he mentioned the event at the Nimitz, but it hadn't been known publicly yet, but he let it slip. It was an audacious challenge to the government by a group of former insiders, each one knowing secrets that motivated them. 2 weeks later, on Rogan, DeLong repeated many theories, including that Roswell is why the Air Force became a separate entity from the Army. Roswell was why the government enacted the 1947 National Security Act to create security apparatus, including the CIA, to lock the secret in for 75 years. Mainstream says that all of this was because of the Cold War, but he claimed that Roswell was a Nazi-built Russian saucer, and also that the U.S. knew the secret of free energy. DeLong did not name sources. The problem is people were giving money to his new group, and he had to keep it quiet. To the Stars Academy. He claimed that his group was going to build an anti-gravity aircraft. He promised to do it within 8 years and said there was a 60% chance that they'd have it in 36 months. The clock is ticking. This was, what year was it, 17? Yeah, 2017, 2018, 8 years. Better hurry up. Luis Elizondo, the Department of Defense insider, quit over the secrecy. He had overseen the DIA, the NSA. I mean, this is serious spy stuff. He met with Leslie Kean of the New York Times in December of 2017. He had headed secret agencies that were begun by Senator Harry Reid to study UFOs. And it was a scientific intelligence investigation of UFOs that ended in 2012. And he claims the Pentagon continued it, just funding it secretly under a different name. He quit in 2017 because he was being obstructed. He says there's overwhelming evidence, and why weren't we spending more time and effort on this? And there could be an existential threat to national security if we don't pursue it. We found a lot of anomalous craft defying the laws of aerodynamics, he says. This is the guy that was in charge of the NSA and the DIA. Not a low-level wacko, right? The Bureau did not let him get away without actually answering the ET question. I'm sorry, the Bureau. I'm going blind here. Aaron Burnett. Somehow I'm conflating Aaron Burnett with the FBI. This is kind of scary. Aaron Burnett was interviewing him. Didn't let him get away with deflecting the question about ETs. She says, so I know you're being clearer, but I mean, the answer is yes. Are they real? And in a response that will no doubt be remembered as a definitive and perhaps even one day historic moment, the man who ran the Pentagon's secret investigations into the UFO phenomenon finally said what he really thinks. Quote, I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means. And then the big question on everybody's mind is, what does Elizondo know from his time in the black world that convinced him so strongly that the U.S. has very compelling evidence that we may not be alone? Then we have Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a professional debunker, basically. Just because you don't know doesn't mean it's intelligent aliens visiting from another planet. Well, that's very true. I think they'd be surprised to know that a lot of people agree with that. Doesn't mean they don't exist. They may just not be necessarily from another planet. Time travel, time warps, wormholes, what's it called? Other dimensions, interdimensional travel. Bigelow had modified buildings in Las Vegas to hold, quote, metal alloys and other materials. Elizondo had recovered stuff from UFOs, and Bigelow was storing it. Later, this was walked back. But now we don't know. We have two conflicting stories. He's got them, he doesn't have them. Because of the legal situation with inventions, they have to be careful of the SEC. DeLong also promised a demonstration of materials that had anti-gravity properties, but it's been 4 years since he promised that. Politico reported that UFOs are around sensitive military facilities and sensitive military exercises. They're unidentified, but what are they? Russian? Chinese? Overwhelming evidence is they're not, because of how they behave. And there's a lot of discomfort at the obvious conclusion. If they're not human-made, what the heck are they? DeLong posted the whole idea of UFO videos. He posted those in 2020. And then his To the Stars Academy sort of disintegrated. It didn't go away, but a lot of the big important people in it who had a lot of science background or connections slowly filtered away. So these videos that he put up there were from the military. So let's see how long the next chapter is. Do one more chapter. Chapter 17, Verified Unidentified. In the New York Times, May 2019, there was a story. In 2014, 2 Hornet jets off the Atlantic Ocean, Virginia Beach, training for the Middle East, from the USS Teddy Roosevelt, a nuclear aircraft carrier equipped with new top secret surveillance equipment. All the pilots for weeks saw UFOs on radar and with their sensors hovering and then doing supersonic flight away. Multiple radar, solid objects, something weird was stalking them, but their eyes didn't see them. The very strange object flew between 2 fighter pilots, 2 jets, and almost hit them. And they could not be seen on camera, but they were on radar. So it got to the point where every time they went up, these objects were up there, and eventually all the squadrons experienced them on radar, and eventually all of them began to actually see them physically with their eyeballs. UFOs seemed to be completely unlike any technology that we had, and the behavior seemed impossible. They followed this carrier group all the way to the Middle East. And there was pressure from Congress that just increased and increased, and the military explained that the Navy was withholding. There was this fighting between the branches of the Navy. Mark Walker from North Carolina, representative, he wrote to the Navy and he said that this is a serious security risk, guys. Wake up and put a tremendous opportunity in technology and science advancements if we can get this out in the open, if you're really looking at alien tech. The U.S. Navy assured him that, oh, we take it seriously, but there just aren't any real answers. Finally, in September of 2019, they had to admit publicly they couldn't explain any of this. They had no idea what it was. This is an historic admission on the part of the U.S. military. Well, folks, there are things harassing our best fighter pilots and following our super carriers with nuclear weapons, and we don't know what that is. Luis Elizondo said why he thought that they were UFOs. He called it 5 observables. And I'll really quickly try to summarize it. No propulsion, instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocity, low observability, transmedium travel, like air, water, space. And there's a lot more detail, but that's just a quick overview. In April of 2019, there was a new Navy guidelines for pilots on how to report UFOs. And they're not endorsing that they're aliens, but there's something strange out there that should be looked at. In April of 2020, the Department of Defense released videos and said, yeah, these are unidentified. So the first time in history, they actually admitted it and backed it up with videos. This would, the military brass then, would they respond to the pilots by saying, okay, we will investigate, we believe you, and we will investigate. The Navy admitted it does hold briefing slides that are classified top secret, stating the release of these materials would cause exceptionally grave damage to the national security of the United States. The Office of Navy Intelligence refusal to release anything at all was revealing for what it suggests, that there's something very sensitive being hidden from public scrutiny. There was a total ban on releasing all this stuff, and they don't know why. Of course, some of it would be protected perhaps, but why could it possibly be so secret that the briefing slides could not be released in their entirety? The U.S. government is indeed holding on to something about UFOs that it does not want you to know. If indeed a big U.S. technological breakthrough has been done, and that's what we're seeing, U.S. flying objects that defy what we think we can do, this is a gigantic breach of security because it's been compromised. People have seen it. It's on video. It's been on 60 Minutes. So it's pretty obvious the government is hiding something. Pretty obvious. I already read that. And Mellon says, who should know, says they aren't U.S. technology. So the fear is it's an adversary, and we're way, way behind. So like China has supersonic flight, blah, blah, blah. But the U.S. military doesn't seem concerned about the threat in its airspace. It's not reacting that we can see. DeLong claimed the U.S. had anti-gravity, and was his group maybe a government attempt at plausible deniability? So was he being used to get the story out slowly? So would the government slip the technology to DeLong, the knowledge of it, so that his group could discover it? In other words, claim they were the ones who designed it and not the government doing it secretly behind everybody's back. This is very complicated. Okay, I'm going to stop here. So this is the end of number 4. And we'll be back here shortly with the next video. Thank you very much for watching. I have to write this down before I forget what number I'm on. It's terrible. Ugh. So thank you very much for watching. I'll be back. And if your mind is blown, join the group. Song of Oil.